Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be looking at the Imola Grand Prix that's taken place this weekend. There's a few key storylines that I think you should keep your eye out for, and I'm just going to talk through a few of them now. So I think the first one is Sebastian Vettel. Let's make no mistake, last weekend was not his finest hour. He had a poor qualifying, and it was found that he had actually disobeyed the yellow flags. So although his qualifying performance, people were blaming Mazepin, some of that was on himself because he actually had sped through the yellow flag zone. So Sebastian Vettel didn't have a good weekend. The crash with Ocon just added more pain, but his season really hasn't got started yet, so he really needs to pick up his performances. We really want to see at least a Q2 or a Q3 from Seb so that he can get himself back on the right track. To be honest, for me, he hasn't been where he needs to be for the last maybe 2 years. I think he was way outclassed by Leclerc in 2019. He was lucky to get the win in Singapore, and I think since then, we've just seen him downward spiral. But hopefully, a fresh start. If he can hit the ground running this weekend and potentially get himself some points, maybe his fortunes could change. But with so many of the midfield runners vying for a spot now in that top 10, it's going to be very difficult. Personally, I don't think the Aston Martin is as good as people thought it was going to be. The whole rake situation that Otmar Safnauer keeps alluding to maybe has impaired them somewhat, but I just don't think they're even in the top 5, top 6 teams. I think they're really fighting with the likes of AlphaTauri for minimum points this season. So I don't necessarily think they're going to finish as one of the bottom 2 teams. I'm not saying that it's going to be that bad, but I think Lance Stroll did quite a good job with it, with a car that I don't think is capable of a lot this season. So Vettel's going to have a chance. He can improve, and we know his quality from 2010 to 2013. But will he do anything this weekend? Well, let's wait and see. The second big storyline of the weekend for me is Hamilton versus Verstappen round 2. Now, no matter what side of the argument you're on, whether you're a Hamilton or a Verstappen fan, nobody can say that wasn't great racing. Now, yes, Hamilton did track extend quite a few times in the race, but Verstappen will probably start to do that as his experience levels go up. And I know he's been in the sport for quite a while now, but Lewis Hamilton is a wily old fox and he knows all the tricks of the trade. This is what's won him 7 world titles, because he knows how to push the car to the limit. He knows how to push the rules to the limit. And that is something that you learn in F1 through experience and through, really, the team should have been helping Verstappen out in that argument. If they'd seen Lewis Hamilton doing that in the previous 27 laps, they should have been saying to Verstappen a bit earlier. It took them too long to click on, and that's maybe where Red Bull falls slightly far behind Mercedes in that argument. But the racing we got was brilliant. Verstappen probably did have the faster car and the strategy was a little bit compromised, but I think this weekend we may see a role reversal, and I think Verstappen could do Lewis Hamilton over. Obviously last year Bottas was on pole and Hamilton got a little bit lucky with the overcut with the safety car coming out. So maybe a slightly undeserved win from Hamilton. But this weekend, I think roles will be reversed. We're going to see Perez much closer, and I think that could help out Verstappen, because 2 Red Bull cars fighting the Mercedes is definitely better than 1. He's been suffering in the last few years, but Verstappen will probably be the lead car there, and I think him against Lewis Hamilton once again is going to be brilliant. I really hope this story transpires over the whole season and we do get to see some really close battles. As for Verstappen and how I thought he drove last weekend, I thought his form was imperious. He's just a little bit impatient at times. That move, he knew Hamilton was going to force him out wide. Maybe he should have waited a lap or 2 longer and tried to get him on the main straight. But that's just, again, it's going to come with experience. He has got a lot of experience in F1, but experience of winning championships and winning races at crucial times, I don't think he's got anywhere near as much as Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton has been there and done it so many times before. Qualifying performance last weekend may have gone to Pierre Gasly. P5 was a really, really good result, and he was way ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who everyone is hotly tipping to be a potential recipient of the Red Bull seat in a few years' time. He really needs to get his season started, because the crash with Daniel Ricciardo absolutely ruined his race. He could never get back into it. If he was waiting for a safety car, he might have had a chance, because that AlphaTauri car looks rapid at the minute. It looks really quick, and I do actually think this could be the car that gets maybe P6 or P5 in the championship this year. It is that good. So Gasly, he really isn't a fight now, because if Tsunoda outperforms him this season, his Formula 1 career potentially could be on ropes, because there's so many drivers coming through F2. The seats run out, and if he leaves the Red Bull Academy, but there's people coming through, it could end up like Hulkenberg, and it would be absolutely disastrous, because Gasly's got so much talent. But I think this weekend, there's a chance for him, not just to get points, not just to get even the top 5, I think he could potentially get a podium. I think he's genuinely that good at this point, and that car is that good at this point. Another good qualifying result. We know how difficult overtaking was last year, and the only reason we did see some overtaking at the end last year was because of the safety car and the fact that there was people on different compounded tyres, the soft tyre runners coming through quite quick at the end. But if Gasly's out there and he's already in P3, I find it quite hard to see anyone getting past him because of how quick the AlphaTauri looks on the straight as well. So Tsunoda made good use of that, passing the likes of Vettel and Alonso last week. So I think Gasly has a brilliant chance now to go and rewrite his season, get it back on the right track, and prove to everyone that if he does leave AlphaTauri at the end of the year, he's a hot property and he should be someone that people are looking at for the regulation change in 2022. Unlike Netflix and the Drive to Survive people, I'm not going to manufacture a rivalry out of nothing, but I do think Daniel Ricciardo against Lando Norris is going to be a little interesting one this weekend. Now, Ricciardo's coming in as the experienced teammate and would be expecting to beat Norris and keep proving to people that he is still in the top 3 or 4 drivers in the F1 paddock right now. With seats potentially becoming available next year at Mercedes, maybe Red Bull, maybe even Ferrari if they get back to winning ways, Daniel Ricciardo could be one of the names that people are vying for to get him in for 2022 with the experience he's already got in F1 and possibly put him in a championship contending car. Now, if Lando Norris were to beat him this year, I think that puts pain to any chance of ever getting into another championship winning car, potentially. Was Red Bull ever a championship winning car? Probably not when he got there, but he had a car that could win races. He doesn't now. He's got to prove himself once again against Lando Norris. If he does lose this fight, Norris potentially puts himself in a fight next year. And who knows, if McLaren don't improve, Norris could be moving on to one of the big teams. But Ricciardo Norris, that's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, Norris had the beat of him last weekend. He drove another really mature race and he keeps performing well. Lando Norris is consistently one of the best midfield drivers now. And I think he's probably on the top 10 drivers of the grid at this point. If he does take the scalp of Daniel Ricciardo, then I see no reason why Lando Norris can't argue himself to get him possibly in the Mercedes seat or even in the Ferrari seat potentially. You know, Red Bull probably have their own agenda, and a lot of people say this Mercedes seat is strictly between George Russell and Valtteri Bottas, but I think there's a lot of names in there that people aren't mentioning, the likes of Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris included. So I think that's going to be an interesting one this weekend. Both drivers probably looking at points because the McLaren is a good car and they really want to be fighting for P3 in the championship. But that's definitely going to be an interesting little fight. Who'll come out on top? One of the final stories that I think could transpire this weekend is could George Russell get his first points in that Williams car? Now obviously he got his first points in F1 last year in the Sakir Grand Prix in that unfortunate result when he finished P9 but probably should have won and had it taken away from him twice. Getting points in the Williams is effectively a win for him and keeps him in that discussion for the Mercedes seat in 2022. Obviously at a disadvantage because if Valtteri Bottas would go out and win 5 or 6 races this year and George Russell would score points maybe once or twice, then you'd say Bottas was probably the favourite despite his age. It does seem an unfair argument because Russell's going to have to fight an uphill battle to prove himself, but getting points at the Imola GP very early on in the season could be the first marker that he puts out and puts a little bit of pressure on Bottas to keep delivering. Again, I don't think these are the only two in the discussion, but if George Russell were to get points this season and make up for the mistake last year that cost him dearly. Last year, he crashed behind the safety car when I think he was running in P10. This year, he's got to right the wrongs. The track's difficult to overtake on, so another good qualifying performance from him, and that could set him up for his first points finish in the Williams. We know how good he is in qualifying, so I've got no doubt that he can get through to Q2, but can he stretch that get through to Q3? It would put him on the worst compounded tyre for the start of the race, but it might do wonders for him and for his confidence if he could get through to Q3 and then just try and stick with the guys in front of him, stick in the midfield battle for as long as he can, and who knows, he may well look into a couple of points. The car itself isn't capable of getting points, but the driver is more than, and I think this could be the weekend that George Russell really shows the F1 world and the guys who haven't watched F2 what a talented driver he is.